Hi Andreas, welcome. We're here to talk about ISO 50001 today. Before going into the details there, maybe you could give us a quick introduction in CBR and what you're doing in the space of sustainability, and maybe mention a few of notable clients you have in that space already.
Yeah, hello, my name is Andreas Egloff. I'm from CBR. I'm a project manager at CBR. We are a worldwide operating sustainability consulting firm based in Hamburg and Mannheim. And our clients are mostly in two business areas, healthcare and life science, and climate tech, which is more related to sustainable aviation fuels and chemical parks. A few of our customers are Autoimmune. It's a smaller medical device manufacturer in laboratory equipment, and also Uniper, or bigger companies in the field of chemical parks.
Right. Thanks a lot for that. So let's maybe dive directly into the topic of ISO 50001. Can you tell us a bit more about the certification or the regulation itself?
Yeah, so the ISO 50001 is an international energy management system standard. It's about improvement of energy, reducing energy consumption, and of course also reducing CO2 emissions. There's a new version of 2015 which have more focus on measurement technologies, and there are increased needs for measuring energy efficiency and energy flows.
Okay. So what I've heard is kind of a lot of companies are impacted by it in Europe, right? Especially looking at the 23 gigawatt hours requirement there. So that sounds like a big deal. So is it only for the larger companies, or like what is the scope of that topic?
Yeah, in Europe there's the European Energy Efficiency Directive, which requires companies which consume more than a total energy consumption of greater than 23 gigawatt hours a year. They're obliged to have an ISO 50001 certificate. In Germany, it's of course the European regulation, and you have always the national acts or laws then below. And in Germany, for example, it's the Energy Efficiency Act, which then requires company above 7.5 gigawatt hours to have either ISO 50001 certification or EMAS certification.
All right.
And of course, smaller companies can have also ISO 50001. I mean, there are some companies who want to have this in terms also of sustainability, to improve their sustainability. And also to improve costs, of course.
Okay. Are there certain sectors, industry, or even countries which are more impacted by that?
Yeah, there are some, mostly the energy intensive sectors, which have to comply with ISO standards or applying ISO standards, especially transport or industry. And there are also some countries which are more impacted, or which apply more ISO 50001 certificates. Countries like Europe, Scandinavia, and also in Asia, some countries which are heavily depending on production.
Okay. So I guess a lot of people are getting confused between ISO 50001 and 9001. So how do they actually differ?
Yeah. So the biggest difference between ISO 50001 and 9001 is 50001 is focusing on energy and energy management, and 9001 is focusing on 9001 and quality management.
Okay, all right. Is that actually a voluntary thing, or like how is it becoming a mandatory case?
Yeah, that's something you can see if you look into data, how the ISO 50001 is distributed worldwide, the certificates. You can see that Europe has a lot of companies certified after ISO 50001. This is due to the already mentioned regulation, the Energy Efficiency Directive, or then the national regulations, like in German it's Energieeffizienzgesetz, or Energy Efficiency Act, which pushes the ISO 50001 regulation in these countries.
Okay. So I'm asking the question, so what is in for the companies, right? So like, I mean, they need to comply with, like, what are the benefits of the 50001 certification? And I've heard that there are quite some overlaps as well with CSRD and ESRS. So can you give us a bit more details about that?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so of course for most of the companies it's important to know their energy consumption, where they consume a lot of energy, because they have to report it then later in CSRD, and also of course it's a tool to know where energy is consumed and to optimize it then and to manage it. So therefore, of course, companies apply this to have cost control.
Okay. And so if we look at companies who already need to comply with ISO 14001 and 9001, and so the ISO 50001 is supposed to be compatible with that, right? So how easy is it to integrate that into the existing topics companies are already covering?
So the ISO 50001 works also with the high-level structure of ISO. It's the well-known PDCA circle, Plan, Do, Check, Act. And if you have already implemented 9001 or 14001, you already know the mechanism, you already have one standard constructed after the high-level structure. So it's easy to apply also 50001, because there are some parts which are already covered by the other regulations or ISO standards.
Okay. So what do companies typically need to do in order to get it started? Is there a certain process they need to follow, and what is the starting point for that?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the first thing is that ISO 50001 usually is not that new to the companies. Most of them the companies have to comply with. They already have existing 50001 knowledge in the company. So most of them, they're not starting from scratch, because most of them, they have it already. But the first point is, first you do an assessment of energy consumption and the energy used in different processes. And then you can follow different steps, like you define your energy policies, etc.
Okay. So if we're breaking it down, let's talk about the steps, right? So it's like, what are the main requirements companies need to meet?
The important things are measuring energy and reporting on this energy you measure, and define actions you have to take, and you will take then.
So you just mentioned CSRD, so that's actually really interesting, right? Because this year is going to be a huge thing in front of us, and like a lot of companies need to comply with CSRD. So how does that really interconnected there? What's the potential from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, mostly bigger corporations need to comply with CSRD, and also most of the time they're also consuming a lot of energy. So I mean, there's a big overlap between you have to report on CSRD and you have to be compliant with ISO 50001 in Europe at least. And there are some overlappings, especially in the first chapters of the high-level structure of the ISO 50001, which overlaps with disclosure requirements regarding SPM, etc., in the CSRD field.
All right. So from a tech perspective, I guess it's great news that we're supposedly starting to work on a solution there together. So how can software help companies to comply with the ISO 50001 regulation?
Yeah, so one thing I think customers will look out for is this connection we already talked about between CSRD and other ISO regulations. So you would like to have these informations you already gathered for CSRD or for ISO 50001 to be able to flow between those two regulations. So companies, of course, they are looking for a hub solution, for an integrated solution, which allows exactly those interchanges of information between the two systems, two standards. Yeah.
All right, and software will be an essential piece in there in order to make that happen.
Sure.
So I guess the good news is that we're starting to work in that regard together. So can you give a sneak preview and what's coming in that regard?
So yeah, what we're gonna do is we'll develop an ISO 50001 hub with you. We are bringing in our expertise, especially the expertise of one of my colleagues, Mr. Dr. Ralf Rieken, who has plenty of expertise, more than 25 years in the field of ISO 50001. We will bring in the knowledge about how those processes need to be structured in your company, and osapiens, they will bring the hub and the IT infrastructure, let's say. And
that's really helpful. Thank you very much for your time, Andreas.
You're welcome. Thank you.